Welcome back to Switch to Linux. Well, I want to talk today just a little bit about music and media organization. And I wanted to mention this just in light of the fact that we are now putting up our podcast on for the Weekly News Roundup. And Ivan is doing some other random clips that are nice for you to have a look at. So just for people who have asked for a straight audio feed of the shows. So we'll kind of walk through what we're doing here and how this kind of ties in. So I'm uploading everything related to the Weekly News Roundup, and Ivan has the STL Cast Quest podcast, which is usually just random clips. It could be things from the Weekly News Roundup or clips from other shows throughout the week. And mine is just the full episodes of the Weekly News Roundup, and we do have them all up for 2026. And I don't think I'm going to go backwards and do 2025 on here. We're just going to put these on going forward. As of right now, the only place we have the feeds is up here at podcast.switchedtolinux.com. You can grab the podcast feed and put that into your favorite podcast player there. Once we have this tested pretty thoroughly, then we will syndicate it across anywhere else that we can. But what I wanted to do is when you look at podcasts, basically a podcast is just a media file, a basic audio file brought in with an RSS feed, and some of your players will pull information from the metadata of the RSS feed. However, some media players will only be recognizing the metadata tag that is put into the audio files themselves. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that because I have, since far before I've been working with Linux, I have been sorting out music, not just the traditional music you can buy on the internet, but also I've been cataloging a lot of sermons. And so since those do not usually have internet databases where you can download the images and other things like that, what I wanted to do is have a good logical means to sort them out. And it just turned out that the logical means I was sorting out all of those sermons ended up fitting into exactly how nearly every music player would work by populating not just a folder structure, but also by populating your metadata. And so I wanted to talk briefly about that. So first, let's go ahead and have a look at Lollipop here. Now, this is one of the better media players for me. This uses the metadata of the audio files. You can send it to go online and capture information about artists and albums. You can do that kind of stuff. I have that feature turned off here. And so everything here from the artists and the different types of albums and the tracks are all going to be built into the system based on the metadata of the files themselves. So here is Rush's Moving Pictures. Here's all of the tracks for that. Here's Presto. Here's all the tracks for that. And I can go back and I pulled over 2 Pink Floyd albums. So here's Metal. Here's the Division Bell. And so what you can see is that this is using the metadata of the audio tracks themselves. And why that is important is some media players read with the first version of ID tags. Some of them read with the second version of ID tags. I haven't seen any that are exclusively the third version of ID tags, and I don't use those. But what I like to do is have everything logically ordered by the album and then the artist and then the album and then the tracks. And then I name them with the tracks with a logical numbering, usually 0.1 in the track. So here's, for example, my Rush folder will have the album here. And then you'll see that each of the songs is 01, which is the track number. And then we have the album the song name there. Now, if I were to open this up with Kid3 is what I use to tag the files, you'll see that inside of here, I'm using both the tag 1 and the tag 2. And you can see it looks like just the same data, so why would you possibly do 2 of them? Well, the reason is because of most of your modern MP3 things uses tag 2, but some of your smaller or older or maybe even cheap Chinese players that work, they just aren't the best, they will still use tag 1. And so I always just populate from tag 2 to tag 1. And I actually just set a hotkey inside Kid3. I just get everything set on tag 2 and I hit Control and 1, and it will populate all of the data up. But you can see that each one of these tags is set right. Now, I did want to mention here that as far as cataloging your tags, I wanted to go over here and just have a look at, let me go up to the music folder directly. Because I have all of the albums here. So these are all of the podcasts that we have. And what you see here is that the tag 2 has the full name. The tag 2 can have a lot more bits in it. So you'll see that tag 2's name is Pennsylvania Rejects the Fourth Amendment, whereas the tag 1 is Pennsylvania Rejects the Fort, you know. And this is because the tag 1 can only hold a certain amount of data, and it's a very small number. In fact, it can't go over 255 tracks. Anything over 255, it just locks at 255. So this became an issue with my Christian podcast, where the track numbers are right for ID2, but not right for ID1. You'll notice that we also have an image for the file over here. Actually, that's 1400. That's should be a smaller image. I think all of the rest of them are set at 450 by 450, which is what you want for the embedded image inside the file itself. But what I wanted to show you here is using Kid3 if you are into organizing your media. Kid3 is absolutely the best of the tagging programs that I've used. Now, there's other tagging programs, and you might disagree and like another one better. I just got to the point where with my logic flow, Kid3 is exactly what I need, and I have it installed on most of my computers, so no matter where I'm at, I can manage and organize different files. And so what I can do here is I can highlight all of the tracks if I hold my shift, and then you'll see here that the titles and the track numbers are different, and the pictures are different for the tag 2, but you'll notice that the albums and the artists are the same. In this case, the years are the same as well. I do this to make sure that all of the albums and the artists are correct. I don't want to have an accidental error and a typo in something, and so on your MP3 player it shows up one is Rush and the other one is Rushy because I accidentally typed an extra Y or something on it. So I always like doing that. But then each one of the individual tracks, you can add your title, you can add all of the things you need here, and then you can even add a picture of it as well. And the picture is useful because that will show up over here. And I'm going to pause that so that's not playing there. But you can see that each of these guys here, hold on, it should give us a different picture there. It's actually showing me just the first track picture on here. And that might be, I'm not sure where that's coming from. That should actually be updating the pictures there. You can see this one up here, the little tiny picture at the very top. That does change on each one. Well, it should be changing on each one. Maybe Lollipop is a bad example. To be honest, I don't listen to a lot of music on my computers like this, so I just installed this because I know it does work with tracks. But if you had a basic MP3 player that will read the track title inside of your system, then it will grab the correct track image as well. Let me check real quick, see if I can find a specific track that's working right here. Yeah, it's just grabbing that first track from the very first episode of that over here. I'm not sure why that might be an error in Lollipop. It should actually be giving us the individual track image for each one. If you look at Kid3, you'll notice that each track image has its own separate image to it there, which will populate correctly on most MP3 players. I think Lollipop might be a bad example of that. As I just threw that on there, assuming that the track images would work, but I guess they don't. As far as your other albums here, you can see how I have this logically organized. And on my track, which has all of my files, you can see here that I've literally gone through over the years every single album I have, and I have verified all of the tracks have the correct titles, the correct tags, did them all on tag 2, populated all from tag 1, and ultimately that ends up giving you an organization that's working out really well. And this way, no matter if I'm just dropping things over, for example, VLC doesn't actually use the tags inside the system, that at least the way I've used it, it basically will expand down and show you everything based on the logical folder structure. So what I'm doing here is the logical folder structure works where I can find everything. But if I have a tag player or a media player like Lollipop that uses the tags, it will actually find the individual tags as well, and it will display everything based on the tags inside of the system. So if you are struggling with figuring out why your music will look good on one player and not good on another, it has to do most likely with the fact you want your tag 1 and tag 2 populated on everything, and then obviously use a logical folder structure. Now that seems obvious to a person in my generation. I think the modern world, because we just rely on the devices to organize everything for us, we tend to drop everything into folders randomly. I think maybe that's just the geekiness of my generation, where we're much more organized. But that was hopefully information for you to manage your music library on Linux, set up your tags, set up your folder structures. And my actual full system is pretty comprehensive. I can show you what that looks like. Not on Kid3, it doesn't like networks, but let me show you. So here's my whole NAS where I have all the different music that I have. So each organization here is put together. Let's just find something I have a lot of. Let's see. I know I have a lot of the Pink Floyd. So looking at this, each one of these is organized. And then now some of these, like I think The Wall, I have gone through and properly organized the whole thing, versus Umaguma, I still have it set as disc 1 and disc 2 separately. So that one might be one I still might need to fix a little bit. But you'll see that any track in here, is there anybody out there, is technically, I think, is this one Roger Waters? That one might be Roger Waters. No, I think Pink Floyd. I forget. In the Flesh was Roger Waters there. So you can see that every track here, everything goes the artist and then the album, and then the track numbers are like this, and then each one of these, I don't think this is going to work if I open it with Kid3. Kid3 does not like working across network shares. Okay, it is working. Okay. In all of our earlier tests, it did not like working around network shares. Now, you will notice on this one here, I am actually overriding the artist from what the internet libraries would say, because this album is technically Roger Waters, not Pink Floyd. I just like keeping the individual solo album artists inside the main branch of Pink Floyd for a personal preference. So I can see all of the music I have there. And what else do I have multiple of? I got multiple Weird Al's, I know that. So each album, of course, the same way. Each album has all of the individual songs. And so that's how I keep everything organized on the folder structure, and then utilizing tags, utilizing Kid3, perfect free and open source application on Linux to easily adjust everything. You can also do things like creating playlists. I've not actually used the create playlist option here. Usually when I need to create a playlist, like for example, my van, I can create playlists to play in my van. I'll usually do them over here on VLC. And then of course I need to run them through a regular expression, because the van's embedded system is actually Windows based. So I have to rewrite the playlist for that, but that's easy enough to do with a little script. But hopefully that helps you to get your music all organized and ready, and working hopefully on every MP3 player that properly works. I guess this one's just not giving us the proper pictures for our tracks playing for some reason, but oh well, we'll have to look into that another time. So let me know your thoughts about all that. This is an update to a video I did years and years ago, so I wanted to do something a little bit new, modern, and with a modern operating system. And this is, of course, done on my Raspberry Pi 5 MX Linux running Cinnamon. Thanks for watching, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.